thank you all for coming. It's good to see a lot of people I know, a lot of people that I'll probably get to know at some point, a lot of people that I saw just an hour ago in Michael's presentation. We are going to talk about NCPA. Does anyone in this room know what NCPA is an acronym for?
Nagios Cross-Platform Agent.
Boom, that's right. So it's for Nagios, it's cross-platform, and it's an agent. So the acronym is actually really apt. So I didn't have this slide until I watched Aaron's presentation yesterday. But now I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. Then I'm going to tell you what I tell you. And then I'm going to tell you what I told you. And this slide is the start of that. So we're going to talk about the origin and purpose of NCPA. We're going to talk about how to set it up, how to use it, primarily with XI, but it works with XI and Core, so it's awesome for both. And then we're going to talk about some cool things it can do. For some of you, the actions part of this might be kind of a rerun, but for people that weren't here for Michael's presentation, that'll be something new and very exciting. So stay tuned till the very end. So the origin of NCPA. For this, let's actually hit the website too, which does a pretty good job of describing it. So the project page talks a little bit about it, but basically, and I was here pre-NCPA. Before NCPA, there were a lot of different agents for a lot of different systems. NRPE was really popular for active checks on Linux. NRDP was the way to do passive checks. NS Client was the way to monitor Windows. So you were just juggling a bunch of different agents. And at the 2012 Nagios World Conference, somebody said, I have no idea why agents are so difficult. And Nagios was like, that's a great thing to say. Yeah, we really don't know either. And so over the next year and a half, the Nagios dev team created NCPA, which was kind of the one agent to rule them all, because it monitors Windows, Linux, OS X. It monitors AIX and Solaris, but only the older versions of NCPA, and that's something that's being worked on right now. But there are older versions of NCPA that you can load on Solaris and on AIX, but it needs a little bit of updating. But it's awesome, even just that it can do Windows and Linux, and OS X is really cool. And there's just a few different ways to install. Now, as far as actually installing NCPA, Windows is super easy. It's just an exe installer. You punch in a few pieces of information when you run it on your Windows box, and it's up and running. It does the port permissions for you. It sets everything up, and like a minute and 10 seconds later, you can be an XI running a wizard monitoring that Windows machine. So it's really cool. Linux isn't difficult either. I'll actually demo how to do it on Linux. OS X is a DMG installer. So it's really easy to install, and it just works. That's one of the great things about it. There's not a whole lot of fiddling that you need to do with NCPA typically to make it give you access to a system to monitor it. And, before we move on to actually installing it, I just want everyone to remember, as Michael Belru told us, NCPA is truly a blameless, holy creature. Now, I tell you this just in case something goes wrong, something doesn't work during this presentation. I want you to remember this, because this is true no matter what happens, no matter what problems you might run into, no matter what differences there might be between what documentation says and what it actually does. None of that is relevant. NCPA is, no, say it with me, NCPA is truly a blameless, holy creature. There we go, excellent. Woo! All right, yeah. Perfect. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's actually install NCPA. So I've got, let's see, the IP just changed today too. I should have written it down, or maybe I did. Sorry, I thought I had all this ready to go. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think that's still the IP. We're about to find out. Hey, it's alive, that's good. Okay, so we are now in a Linux machine. This is CentOS 9, and with just a few quick commands, we can have NCPA installed, which is really nice. And we're going to do it using the Nagios repository. So the very first thing we're gonna do, I wish I had more monitors, is install the Nagios repository, which is quick, it's easy, bing, bang, boom, there we go. And the next thing we're gonna do is a yum update, and then we will actually install NCPA using the repository. So it's quick, it's easy. The more you buy, the more you save. There we go. I could have done a dash Y. Yeah, that's fine too, you know. All right, so now we're gonna install NCPA. So we've got the Nagios repository set, we did a yum update. This is how easy it is to install NCPA once you've got all that set. Boom, NCPA is installed on this Linux machine. So it's quick, it's easy, it's cool. Now, one thing to keep in mind with Linux is that it's not gonna actually do the firewall permissions for you. So on Windows, it just kind of happens magically when you run the installer, but on Linux, you actually have to do firewall permissions. So a couple of quick commands to open up 5693, which is the default port that it's gonna use. And there we go, it's ready to rock. Now, we're gonna make a mistake here, or do something that maybe somebody who's just flying through commands would do. We're gonna go to XI. Now, another beautiful thing about NCPA is that there's an XI wizard that does some cool stuff. So we're gonna run the wizard. And we're gonna search for it, and there is now a long list of stuff related to NCPA. It can do a lot of cool stuff now. But we'll do the NCPA wizard. We'll throw in our IP, leave the port the same. We'll say it's a CentOS machine. Oh, our token. What's our token? Where do we find our token? What do we do? Does anybody know? He seems to know.
I cannot remember the exact file name, but I know for a fact that the token is in that file.
A CFG file.
Yes.
Indeed. Yes, it is. You know stuff, man. Alright.
I spent a lot of time with NCPA during this week.
Ah, perfect. Well, that's good. Thanks for the help. Okay, so the token's in the in a comp file. So what we're going to do is open that file and take a look. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Most of it, if you just want to do active checks with XI using the wizard, you don't care about basically any of this. But there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. And you might think listener has something to do with this, but it does not. If we go past all that and go to API, it's our community string. So by default, it's my token. So if you really don't care and you just want to monitor something really quick, like you need a screenshot or something, I mean, you can just leave it my token. But I would change this. Might as well. To something really secure, like Nagios is awesome. All right, so we update that. And now, theoretically, we should be able to monitor this machine. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Cut to Chris Farley.
What did you do? What did you do? Did I put the token in wrong? Oh, man. See? I must have. What did I do?
You have to restart.
Oh, you gotta restart the service! Good man.
I am sorry.
I'm glad you came, man. There we go. And now NCPA knows about the new token. Huzzah, okay. So, one of the really cool things about NCPA, one of the things I like most about it, is that it's not just a small pool of default things people probably want to monitor on a certain type of system, which is nice, it's really handy. But NCPA actually gets a hold of the system using its really cool API and finds out what's actually going on the system. So we can monitor CPU, user counts, memory swap. It actually looks for mount points, drives, partitions, and tells you what's on the system, and then you can monitor for space on those. It'll tell you what the network interface is called and let you monitor that. It'll also tell you about services and processes that are running on the system. So it's not just tell me what you want to monitor. NCPA says, I'm going to take it another step and actually tell you what's going on in this system, and then you can just click on what you want to monitor and monitor it. So it's a really cool approach and kind of sets it apart from a lot of the other wizard options because they're not really telling you what's going on. They're just saying, tell me what you want to do. So for me, this is really nice because you can just, you can check the services, you can check the processes, And again, thanks to that really cool API, which I'll show you more about in a little while, it actually even tells you if things are running or stopped at the time the wizard was run, which is also really cool. And it's that easy. I mean, you just pick the things you want to monitor. And you can also define other plugins that you might want to run. One cool thing actually that I'll show you in regards to this, and then you just hit next and it's regular wizard steps, so nothing really unique or exciting there. But, and I hope we do more of this, let's go back to the NCPA wizard. We're gonna run it on a log server install. 36. And log server is actually loaded with a couple of cluster check plugins. And so when you run the NCPA wizard on a log server install, it goes, oh, do you want to check Elasticsearch cluster status? Do you want to check JVM heap? And so there's a couple of relevant plugins to the Nagios application ready to rock already in the NCPA install on the log server system that it comes with out of the box. So that's a really cool concept too. So monitoring, as you can see, installation, really easy. Setting up monitoring with a wizard, super easy. And that's kind of just like the beginning of NCPA. Let's see where I wanted to go next. Ooh, yeah, the web UI. Okay, so to get to the web UI, we're going to take a roundabout route. We're going to go to log server and go to the this is R2, and go to the admin menu. And it's actually built into log server. And we can go right to the interface from log server, which is kind of a cool thing. Unless I broke my install. I might well have. Oh, there we go. Okay. Blameless holy creature. So all we do, and you can see from the URL, we're just going to port 5693 at the IP of this machine. And then we put in our token. Now this is where NCPA just gets super awesome. So we can see info about the agent, we can see the version, stuff like that. We can see some basic information about the system that it's installed on. Processor type, system, OS, stuff like that. But it's also got live stats. So this is all being presented by NCPA running on the Linux machine that log server is installed on. So it's really cool. I mean, you can jump in here, you can see CPU, you can see memory, you can see disks, you can see interfaces, and it just looks cool. So especially when you're like talking about Nagios, telling people about monitoring things with Nagios, a little bit of info about NCPA and this I don't know, in my experience, people always thought this was really cool. They'd be like, oh yeah, that's great, yeah, let's buy a bunch of Nagios licenses. So, another great thing about it, more functionally, is the API, the check API. And it does a lot of cool things. So for example, if we go to services, you saw in the wizard where we ran the wizard, it did a quick scan, it showed us in that GUI list what was going on. But here you can actually just look at the API endpoint and see exactly what's running and what's stopped. And then you can even do more cool stuff. So we could say SSHD is what we care about. And we'll reload it. Now we just narrowed it down to that. We want an exact match. Let's say we want it to be running. That would make sense. And now if we go run as a Nagios check, we could reload it. We could see what the Nagios output would be. And we can actually see what the full command would be to run this as a Nagios check. So this can be a really easy way to help people set up checks if they want to actually define them manually. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than this. And then we can take this command and we could throw it in our XI. Actually, let's do it. We'll actually run this from the XI install. Should just give it a new IP. Well, that's weird. Maybe we won't do that. Or maybe I did a rollback or something to a different. But I would like to show you that. Okay, let's double check it. 145.50. I'll give it one more shot. Just make sure I got the IP right. Not that. There we go. Didn't even need a password. All right, so first we need to get to where NCPA actually lives, which is user local Nagios lib exec. And so we will jump over there. CD, of course. All right, and now we can actually go back to NCPA and grab that command that it kindly provided for us and run it right from XI, from the command line, just to test it out if we want to. And we will, of course, need to update our token. Thank you for the helpful output. Which was, what did we set our token to?
Nagios is awesome.
Nagios is awesome.
Nice. Although, we're going to a different one. Good memory, but actually we're going to a different machine, now that I think about it. Hopefully this will work. Oh, there we go, okay. So it's actually really cool. And I would say 4 things maybe like event handlers, for things like actions, and maybe most especially for a core user. Like it being able to do this could make your life a lot easier. So that's a really cool function. And the API is, I mean, it's really powerful. It's got a ton of different endpoints. It does a ton of cool stuff. As you can see, it does some great stuff. So, and then there's the graph section, which is basically just all the stuff that we looked at, but gives you a complete list of all of the different things that you can look at to graph. So it's easy to set up on the system you're monitoring, and it's easy to set up inside of XI. It's got the web GUI, which gives it a ton of cool capabilities. It's got a beautiful API. And also you can use NCPA like you could for any agent to do some other cool stuff. Like, graphs, yep, let's preload. Like, let's bounce back to XI, and this will be a little bit of a repeat from earlier, but let's go and look at actions. So you can use NCPA as a way to talk to machines and not just check the status of things on them, but also do things. So in this case, spooler is stopped. I've set it up. I've got a wizard wand icon so that it's in the video. This is the directory of images in XI. So if you're setting up actions and you want to use a bunch of cool images, there's some crazy stuff in there. Not crazy, but there's some cool stuff in there. All right, so we will start it. And that's just going to run a command that I've predefined to start the spooler on this Windows system. And we'll do an immediate check. And we'll see that it has now started. And now that it has, I've set it so that it'll say stop, so we can fire lightning at it and stop spooler. So pretty cool, right? And that's all set up so that that's something you guys know and something in the video too. Under system extensions, components is where you find the actions component. And I'll just show you that real quick. So for like the spooler stuff, we're gonna affect a service. We're gonna affect a very specific one on this host. And then we're gonna run a command. We've set up this code to basically just target the service and only target the service in this case if it's not in an OK state. That's when it would show start, and if it isn't an OK state, that's when it would show stop. And then we basically, this will probably look familiar, this is basically the command that we got from the API, and that's what Nagios is running, only instead of running a check via the API, it is running a script that I set up to actually just stop or start a service. So NCPA can act as a conduit to the machine to do stuff like that, or event handlers, automated scripted actions. So yeah, NCPA, Nagios Cross-Platform Agent, is awesome. And I think that this presentation proves it. And there's that cool logo again. Woo! So, we talked, and now I'm gonna tell you what I told you. We talked about the origin and purpose. We talked about setup and usage. We talked about a lot of the cool things it can do. Does anybody have any questions about the Nagios Cross-Platform Agent? This was definitive, comprehensive. There's nothing more to know, nothing more to ask. Okay. Nothing. Thank you all for coming. Woo! Have an awesome weekend.